Вечера. Laskavo próximo. Do Ukraini, do Odessa. Welcome to Odessa. This is a little bit of a different live stream today. My name is Connor Klein, and welcome to Inside Ukraine. With me, we got the iconic Odessa Opera House right behind me. In the last few weeks, we've had the Black Sea Security Conference here in Odessa, and I've been commenting on the developments geopolitically with the Russo-Ukrainian war. You can see lots of the other live streams. But on this live stream, I want to give you an update about what it's like here on the ground if you decide to come here in order to obviously support Ukraine. Either you're going to come here to support the armed forces in some capacity, you're going to come here to help with the humanitarian effort, or you just want to come here and show moral support and see Ukraine at this crucial juncture in its history, as we are in the fifth summer, I guess, at this point of this phase of the Russo-Ukrainian war. So as you can see, it is, what day of the week? It's a Wednesday today, and it is about 6:07, 18:07 local time. So we're just coming up to the golden hour and probably another hour or so here. And well, actually, it's a little bit quiet behind me at the moment. There are lots of people walking around here in the historic center of Odessa. It's obviously not a Saturday or a Sunday where it's going to be even fuller. And people are still down at the seaside, which is about the biggest part of the seaside is the Arcadia district of Odessa. And there it is thronged. You have the beach clubs and you have the beaches, obviously, along the Black Sea. This is the only part, realistically, the only part of the Black Sea that Ukrainians can go on holidays to in Ukraine. So it extends further down Odessa Oblast into Bujak, but there are problems with connections there because, well, the bridge across that Zatoka was targeted a few times, and then there's another bridge that has also been targeted in Mayaki to get around the other. Probably the like pre-war down there, but here in Odessa, we're now coming into the peak season in spite of this war. That means that there is huge demand on accommodation here in Odessa compared to other times of the year. It's going to reach a peak probably in about a month's time, like early July. Ukrainians like to take their holidays traditionally between the end of June and the beginning of July. That's really the peak season. I think it's a little bit earlier than you would see in Western Europe. And already considering we're in, well, we got into the second week of June, I see more tourists here than before. Was it here? I actually was here this time last year, I think just about. I have been in Lviv and then I came down. I have been in the Baltics for the winter in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And already I see a few more foreigners about, guys dragging the suitcase, young guys in twos or threes. I mean, you do see it a little bit, even since 2022. It's obviously a fraction. I mean, would it even be 2 or 3% of what used to come in 2021 and 2020, and definitely before COVID struck us back in 2020. So you see a little bit more interest in guys who look like tourists, don't look like they're for much other reason as foreigners. But for sure, you're going to have just huge numbers of Ukrainians descending on this seaside city in the next month or so. It is peak time to be here, and it will be absolutely chock-a-block, especially in the beach areas of Odessa that are out this direction in the city. Here in the historic center, people tend to come in the evenings more to enjoy the restaurants, the music, and the cocktail bars in particular. We do have curfew here in Odessa, as in almost all of Ukraine. We don't have curfew in Zakarpattia, which is the Zakarpatska Oblast in the very west of Ukraine, where Uzhhorod is the big city. I actually made a vlog there. Maybe I'll remember to put it down afterwards in the description. If not, you can find it on my lifestyle channel. And you got cities like Mokotchovo. It's kind of the gateway to, one of the gateways to the Carpathian Mountains there. There's no curfew, but the city of Uzhhorod is not very big. It's less than 150,000 people. And in Lviv, when I went there, last time I was there was probably late May, maybe even early June last year. In effect, you could actually go out all night. There were certain places that were open, and there was even a 24-hour restaurant, I remember, at the train station. So it wasn't as restrictive as here. Here, really, there is nothing going on after midnight for now. Now, that might change pretty soon. There is talk about it here in Ukraine. People are starting to question, well, why do we actually have a strict curfew after midnight in Odessa? when number one we don't have in Sarkapatia, and what purpose is it really serving? Is it that the authorities have a real reason not to see people out after midnight? Maybe the chances of doing something nefarious is higher. I'm not really convinced about that at this point. We're in the fifth summer of this phase of the Russo-Ukrainian war with the 2022 Russian invasion. That really holds much water. I guess people, I mean, people just go out and socialize a bit earlier is what happens. So actually, you don't really have nightlife. You have daytime partying, and then in the early evening it hits its crescendo, and you can actually in some places just stay inside until 5 a.m. when the curfew ends, which means you can do an all-night party. But is that really that important that people are not in the street between midnight and 5 a.m.? We'll see what the Ukrainian authorities decide in due course in other parts of the country other than Zakarpattia. So it is going to be, and I can see the signs of it definitely since 2022, and this uh, new invasion by Russia began. It is going to be the most interesting summer here. The weather is already nice, as you can see. It's going to be a pretty good forecast for the next few weeks. At least I don't see much rain forecast for next month, and lots of Ukrainians will be coming down here. Now, if you are a foreigner, which I assume almost everybody who watches these live streams is, then you might want to know, well, should you be considering coming here to Odessa or somewhere else in Ukraine? Now, assuming you have a nationality that gives you visa free, which is going to be the European countries, basically, and I'm not sure if there's anywhere in Europe that doesn't have visa free. We'll say the EU countries or the countries that are allied with Ukraine, so obviously US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, countries like that, they do have visa free for 90 days every 180. That means you need your passport. It needs to have at least 3 months validity left on it. And at least 3 months. It's not 6 months, 3 months, I'm pretty sure. And because I actually had an expiring passport at one point, so I had to double check that for myself. And you can come in 90 days, up to 90 days, within 180 days, which is rolling. So it's not like you stay for 90 days and you have to leave for 90 days necessarily. You can come in for a week, leave for a month, come back in for 2 months, etc. As long as you don't exceed that amount of time here. If you don't have a visa, of course, you can go and get a visa to be in Ukraine if you want to stay longer than 3 months in 6 months. And this is actually one of the easiest countries, I think, in all of Europe to get a visa to stay long term, if not the easiest. I don't know if there is anywhere easier in Ukraine. That was the same before the invasion 2022. Now they don't have huge demands. So it's probably going to be even quicker to get it, I would imagine, because they don't exactly have backlogs here with the hot stage of the war, shall we say. So that is about coming. That's all you need. There are a few rules written in there, I think, about something about having a certain amount of funds or insurance. But, practically, I've crossed the border, I don't know how many times since the beginning of the 2022 invasion, and I've never been asked for anything else other than my passport. And I don't even know if I think back in 2022, I was asked questions by immigration, like what was I doing in Ukraine? But this was like a month after the invasion started. I'd actually evacuated and then I came back to Zakarpattia. So I left from Budapest by train, crossed into Ukraine. I remember on the train they did ask me like, what was I doing? Was I here to sign up for the armed forces? Because they wanted people who were doing that to have already had clearance from their respective embassy. So that was the reason they asked me. But other than that, yeah, that's basically all you need. Your cards should all work here. Maybe if you've got some sort of fussy bank that has, with their risk profile, they start blocking you if you leave the country. You obviously want to communicate that with your bank. But in principle, all your foreign cards should work here, your MasterCard and your Visa. And I'm not sure about American Express, if people really use that much American Express. But for example, you have Wise, you have Revolut, any of those kind of more international online banks as well. All that will work here. There really shouldn't be any problem with using any cards. There are also money changers everywhere in the center, along the seaside. So there you can change money pretty much up until curfew, at least. I'm not sure after curfew. I've never tried to do it, but nothing will be open anyway. So just be aware that if you come, for example, to Odessa, and it will be the same if you're going to Lviv, because there you probably come from Poland, the Polish airport probably you fly into, while here you fly to Chisinau, Moldova. It's about 4.5 hours from the airport to here in Odessa. That if you arrive after midnight, because sometimes the bus might be delayed or you might have scheduled to arrive after midnight, and there is curfew from midnight to 5 a.m. In Odessa, you cannot order a taxi after midnight. You would actually have to walk to your hotel, which might be annoying from the bus station. Just be aware of that if you are coming in, but you have something arranged. That means that in Lviv, that's not the case. You can order taxis after midnight. At least last year you could. Before they had the same restrictions. So you see that over the country, anywhere in the country, the restrictions might be a little bit of inconvenience, but not massively. So I would recommend you arrive before midnight. But that's kind of, And for me, once the bus was delayed for a few hours, so that's why I arrived after midnight, and I had to schlep my suitcase from the central bus station also because he just didn't go into the one that's at Privo's Market, which is a lot closer to the center, historic center. Fortunately, I was not staying out in Arcadia because that would have been, I probably just would have waited at that point or try to flag down maybe if I could find a taxi driver on the street. So, your card should work. Change some cash if you really want to change cash, but like I don't remember really needing cash for anything here recently. Even an entrance into a bar nowadays, you pay by card. It's really become a bit of a cashless society. If you want it to be cashless, you can live here cashless. But then again, I do see a lot of Ukrainians still using cash at the supermarket checkout. So I guess it's still pretty common amongst people here in Ukraine to use cash. But when you're coming as a tourist here in the center of Odessa, and center of Lviv, I'm not really sure if you would ever actually need cash nowadays. Just have a little bit of danger money, I guess. Whatever you want to keep, a few $100, whether it's euros, pounds, or dollars, and then change a little bit if you want to make sure that you have some local currency. International taxi apps work. So Bolt works here. Bolt is very popular in this part of Europe, and you have local taxi apps. And does even Uber still work? I usually don't use Bolt, but I'm pretty sure Uber still works here. But make sure that you have Bolt downloaded, I would say, for the general area, because now they also use it in Poland and also in Moldova. So, and it should also work in Hungary, I'm pretty sure, as well. Slovakia. So probably it's got all the countries covered. Always double check that. But in general, here, make sure you have Bolt downloaded and you're good to go. Anything else that people tend to ask? The internet. If you have an EU SIM card, or technically from the European roaming area, which also includes Iceland and Norway, Moldova, the Moldovan card, because they're kind of scamming a bit, won't work here, but I'm going to take it up with them whenever I get back to Chisinau why they took my €5 off the card when it should just work here. But basically, they have this idea of roaming, that you're in the same area. So it's not quite like being in Poland with your Polish SIM card, but basically it should roam without too much hassle. Most of my American clients do have international plans on their US SIM card. They don't bother getting a local SIM card most of the time if it's for a short trip. And they said it always works. None of them ever had any problem. I don't recommend using the eSIMs that are very commonly advertised in online here, because let's see, someone is saying, one of my clients, just in case there's something to do with this live stream, but nope. He's just telling me something on a different topic. So I normally don't have, they even sent me several emails to get them to promote it. It was a fly or something. These eSIMs that you buy, but they are charging a premium, obviously, that your SIM card's going to work. You're going to have an eSIM that you activate when you land here or you cross the border. The thing is that if you have your international plan activated with your US SIM card, it should work here anyways. And they told me it was something pretty nominal. Like most of my clients said, it's included on their plan. They just have to activate it. And it was like they were paying $30 a month. So I don't really see why you go and get a separate eSIM just for your trip to Ukraine. If you already have that option, just activate it. It's probably already part of your plan. And then if you're coming from an EU country or that EU roaming area, it should work anyways. You should be able to just use it up to a certain level. I think that's also the same when I have my Ukrainian card and I go into neighboring countries. I have like 12 or 13 gigabytes already roaming. So that lasts a while. So if you're going to stay here for a few months, you would definitely want to get a local SIM card. I recommend it anyways on the first day to go and buy an eSIM, a local eSIM, and just have it there. Because sometimes with the US SIMs, they told me it wasn't giving them the fastest downloads. So that would be like I paid for my plan about, I think it's like, has it gone up to €7 from about €6 recently? but something in that ballpark. So about $7, $8, and that lasts me the month. So I would just suggest getting that. That you don't even have to switch in and out the SIM cards anymore. It's just an eSIM. So I've kind of moved to that system, and that will cover you while you're here. So yeah, I would always advise just to get the Ukrainian eSIM. And yeah, I know some people they want to be able to use their American number, but yeah, with all these messaging apps, I think it's only really relevant to business because on all these messaging apps, anyways, it doesn't matter if you change the SIM card anymore. Viber, WhatsApp, Telegram, people can write and call you anyways, even if you switch the SIM card. So that's what I'll say about that. Anything else you should be aware of in terms of internet? Internet works fine in the cities, maybe a little not as good as it was pre-invasion in the countryside somewhere, but for all intents and purposes, when I came from Chisinau by bus last time, it worked like 99% of the way perfectly. So yeah, that's not a current issue. Electricity and heating, obviously, we don't need heating at the moment with this kind of beautiful weather. But for the aircon, at the moment, there are no blackouts that I'm aware of really anywhere in the country. That might become an issue after the summer, depending how good Ukrainian air defense gets to. So let's then segue into the risk of being here in Ukraine. Now, if you look it up on a any DAIs is going to roughly come out to about 1 in a million per day being in the city, like Odessa, for example, or maybe Kiev. Maybe Kiev at the moment is a little bit higher in terms of risk, and a little bit more risky. But you can see 1 in a million per day is negligible on a personal level of being injured or killed in a Russian attack. It's less than getting hit by a car back home, and probably here, getting hit by a car is probably a bigger risk. I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. Of course, that can change if you happen to live beside something that's a bigger target. For example, we have the port here in Odessa. So although I can observe that they're shooting down most of the drones actually out over the sea, they tend to come in from the sea anyways. So occasionally they might come up from through the city, but they're much more likely to get shot down earlier anyways if that's the case. So really, except for one building getting hit here in the center, I don't remember much else happening anywhere near here in the last 2 years, because we're in 2026. So even, yeah, 2023 there was, but because they hit the cathedral, because it's like the highest building almost in one of the highest buildings in the center. But I think they did by accident. But nonetheless, that's it. It's not really statistically that problematic or that high risk to actually be here. If you're coming for 10 days, it'd be like 100,000 risk. If you wanted an even lower risk, then you could go to Lviv, where it's not as risky as being here. So that's going to be less again. If you wanted almost no risk, and of course, there's no zero risk, because there's no zero risk if you go to Romania or Poland or Latvia or Lithuania, Estonia, either, anywhere, or Finland, because Russian drones have a habit of crossing over the border. Same Moldova occasionally. They hit a town in the eastern Romania called Galatz and injured a few people there a couple of weeks ago. You could go to Oshorod, which is in the Zakarpatsky Oblast. It's very rarely targeted, like only once or twice, basically a handful of times during the entire war. And you don't have any curfew there. Again, Uzhhorod, the biggest city, isn't super big. It's less than 50,000 people. Or you go to Chernovtsi, which is also in the west, beautiful center. It's a bit like Lviv, but half the size. And yeah, they're very rarely targeted. It's like maybe once a year that the city even is targeted. I think maybe even it was only once during the entire war, once or twice. So there you could have almost no risk if you were really that risk at first, or you just want to see how you felt when you got here. As I say in all my videos, the biggest impact is going to be psychological. You are going to hear air alerts. You need to have the air alerts app downloaded on your phone with the part of Ukraine that you're in. It'll give you a notification. Then you need to go to Telegram channels, depending on where you are, to understand what the risk is. So I follow some for Odessa, and it tells me exactly why the air alert has gone off. And most of the time, I don't take any other action because either it's a Russian plane taking off, so they might fire a missile, or it's drones that I know are not going to be anywhere near me. Ballistic missiles, you just don't know where it's going. So yeah, that's kind of like complete luck. And if there is a reason to be, with a heightened alert, like Zelensky, the president, has made an announcement saying people should be particularly careful during this night, and there's clearly a lot of ordnance incoming, then I would consider going to a shelter. Make sure you know where the nearest shelter is to where you're staying, and I would go down there because if it's at night, I'm not going to sleep anyways with a lot of noisy air defense, so I might as well go down to the shelter at times. That does not happen that often, maybe once or twice a month, so that I would even consider going to a shelter. That's an overview of what it's like to come here. And that's not, people don't say that the the war is in Syria is the biggest war since World War II in Europe. It's just that if you're not in a frontline city like Kherson or somewhere like where they attack the Konstantinivka, Pokrovsk area, then the risk is not very high statistically. It's more a psychological risk because, you know, these terrorist attacks by Russia are a bit indiscriminate. So that's what likes to come here. What will you encounter when you get here? You'll get the opportunity to see Ukraine basically the only time probably since the early 90s that there aren't so many foreign tourists around. So you're going to see it. Obviously, it's an opportunity to help Ukraine, either, as I said, by helping the military, by helping with the humanitarian effort, by volunteering, by just spending your money and being a multiplier in the economy and documenting it so that you keep the Ukrainian people's struggle here against Russian imperialism on just like a micro influence. Even if it's only to families and friends who watch you, and you can see Ukraine at this very important juncture of its history and actually experience it without, I would say, a super high risk to your own personal safety. And you'll get to see authentic Ukrainian culture, obviously, great food and restaurants, bars, even clubs to a certain extent, and get in on the summer vibe here. And it's unique, undeniably, in Europe to be able to come here. And I'm very thankful to the Ukrainian Armed Forces because when I evacuated on day 2 of the invasion back in February 25th, 2022, I did not know if I would ever be able to come back to Ukraine. Again, I used to go to Crimea quite a lot before 2014, and I haven't been back in occupied Crimea, obviously, since then. So I really appreciate that we have still have the opportunity to come here only due to the courageous resistance of the Ukrainian people and particularly the armed forces. So let me know if you have any questions or comments, those of you who are on this live stream. Any other comments? I mean, basically, if you're wondering what it's like, I mean, all the cafes, I mean, very few places have actually closed down that I would have frequented before the invasion, particularly here in Odessa, Lviv. I've been to Chernovtsi, Kyiv, and Ushurat, those 5 cities that I always talk about. There's 1 or 2 places, but there's lots of new places have opened as well. So it might seem strange, but there's actually probably more hospitality places open, like cafes and restaurants. I mean, clubbing's a bit different because of the curfew. So you'll be able to enjoy that great Ukrainian food, whether it's traditional food and or more modern cuisine or from somewhere else. Like now, there are not just Crimean Tatar restaurants everywhere. There are also what we call Bessarabian cuisine, which is the local cuisine from here in Odessa Oblast. Has become very popular in the last few years. There are many restaurants that serve that. It's very similar to what you find in Moldova, neighboring Moldova for cuisine. And you'll be able to go and see the historical sites. Like any tourist, if you come here, pretty much everything is open. I'm just trying to think if anything is not. Well, you can't go down to the port because it's a military installation. But other than that, I don't really know of anywhere that's in free Ukraine and not right on the front line where you can't go. But you can't go to Chernobyl exclusion area, as far as I know. But yeah, that's also problematic because it's so close to Belarus and Russia attacked out of there. But other than that, basically everything is open, and you can go to Carpathian Mountains. In the winter, you can go skiing. Now you can go hiking there. And yeah, you can see all the beautiful cities that we have in Ukraine. So Lviv and Chernovtsi are 2 that stand out for me. It's not as good in terms of the architecture, say, going to Poland, I would say, or some other parts of Central Europe, because a lot was destroyed during World War II, and it just hadn't caught up with the renovations, like in those countries here, for socioeconomic reasons, since the early 90s. But the historic area of Kyiv is there to go and see. And yeah, maybe if you're going to Zaporizhia, you can go to Hortitsa Island, for example. Also great. Of course, we got here the historic center of Odessa. So as you see, it looks very much like it's other parts of Western Europe, I would say, because this was designed by Austrians and you have a lot of Italian architects and French input into the city from its foundation, which, you know, during the Russian Empire would have been when they conquered it from the Ottomans. There was an Ottoman fortress here called Hagi Bey before that. So a lot of that was designed in, yeah, a lot of the buildings are like 19th century here, basically. I think the city is a 220 something years old since Catherine, Empress Ekaterina II gave its charter for foundation. I'm not sure how involved Potemkin was also in that. So that would make it how much? Yeah, that would make it around the 1800s when it was founded, something in the late 1700s. So If you are thinking of coming here, first of all, drop me a comment down below. If you're not thinking come here, explain what still puts you off. Maybe it's security, maybe it's lack of interest in coming to Ukraine, maybe it's logistics, because you can't fly straight into the country. You got to fly to neighboring countries, so it is a little bit longer to get in here than it would be otherwise. Not so much longer to come to Odessa because it's basically 4.5 hours extra by bus from the airport in Chisinau. From a Polish airport in the east of the country, probably something similar. But if you're coming from Warsaw, it takes like about 9-10 hours by bus. That's normally the route I was taking. If you would like to save yourself a lot of time when you come here, I have my Insider's Guide to Coming to Ukraine During the War, and it has my favorite cafes, restaurants, bars, clubs, and shisha lounges in there for Kyiv, Odessa, Uzhhorod, Lviv, and Chernovtsi. I probably will go this summer to Mykolaiv and maybe even to Kharkiv towards the end. So I will update it, I guess, in the future with that. But I don't think too many of you are going to be going to those cities unless you're doing something like journalism, helping humanitarian effort, helping with the war effort. People are coming here more to see it and to lend support. They normally stay in Kyiv, Odessa, and further to the west than that. But you can get all that, and it will obviously save you just a lot of time on your trip. Figure out where your Irish boy recommends, and obviously it'll give you lots of logistical, safety information, and a bit of historical and geopolitical background as well. Anyways, it's down there. There's a link to that, so you can go invest in that. If you would like deeper advice, because I obviously have my lifestyle channel, which is New Europe, so it's a lot of other countries, not just Ukraine these days, also Moldova, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Kazakhstan, Romania, as well as here. Then you can invest in a consulting call. I have a link to that page down below as well. You can take a read of that, and then we can jump on a call together and figure out your bespoke strategy, either for coming here to Ukraine or for going to one of those other countries if you are interested, because maybe you're going to actually fly into Moldova. And I recommend actually that people stop in Moldova and enjoy, because it has great vineyards nowadays. A lot of new restaurants have been built along the Dniester River. And yeah, it's just so much better than it was a few years ago. I'm not saying it's the best place in Europe, but it is a place that I cover extensively on my lifestyle channel. I think it's extremely underrated. And also, some of you are going to fly into Poland as well and then come across. You might want to check out parts of Poland so we can also discuss your plan there. It can be, in general, I help my clients with leveraging lifestyle arbitrage. That's what I've been doing on the lifestyle channel for the last few years. So that can be with business, relocation, and socializing, whether it's networking or the dating scene, particularly if you happen to be a single guy. This part of the world is obviously well known for its beautiful women, not just here in Ukraine, but the other countries as well. So maybe you have some relationship advice comes up quite a lot. Anyways, all that good stuff, you can go and jump on a call with me. Just go and reserve it there, and we will discuss it in person, figure out your bespoke strategy for coming here, because, well, I've been hanging out in this region for over a decade and have an encyclopedic knowledge and AI level knowledge, because I have my own New York Insider AI as well, which is down there on the consulting page. If you go and click it, you'll also read about it, because, yeah, ChatGPT can get you, like, it's better than nothing, better than a Google search, but 20% of the way there, 25%. And then with the AI, you get like 80, 90% of the way there. And then obviously for education, for something really in depth, then you need to invest in the call. Anyways, go and check all of that out. And yeah, if you're watching this on replay, which I guess most people are going to do, then drop your comments and your questions in the chat. I don't really have much else to say, because I'm going to go to a meetup with some friends here. It's part of the German community, German speaking community. And that already started about 5 minutes ago. So pack your sunscreen for sure, because it is quite warm at the moment. I can't say the climate here in Odessa tends to be like mid 20s to mid 30s for most of the summer. So not super hot. Like, it gets very hot in Chisinau because it's further inland, and other parts that are further inland, maybe in Odessa Oblast. But here it's a little bit cooler by the seaside. So definitely pack your swimming trunks. You'll probably be swimming in the pool in the beach club rather than in the Black Sea. Nonetheless, that's what I did even pre-invasion most of the time. And you come here and actually have kind of a vacation, as odd as it seems. But in general, this is clearly for people that are curious about coming to Ukraine. I know that I read a stat that 80% of the tourism now is what they refer to as dark tourism. It's actually people want to go and see the monuments or the wreckage from the war. So they'll go out to Bucha and they'll go on one kind of a recent history tour, a war history tour since either 2014 with the Euromaidan Revolution or most recently in 2022, uh, extended invasion by Russia of Ukraine. So also, if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments, or you can reach out to me by email, connor@connorklein.com. It's also down there in the description to this live stream. So, do I have anything else to say other than, yeah, you can come, read the recent history, support Ukraine in some capacity. And yeah, you can even have a good time. You can even party a bit. And yeah, see the beautiful historical and natural sites of Ukraine without the hordes of tourists in general. But let's be frank about it, most of them were single guys chasing the girls, the vast majority. I actually looked it up in one of the AIs, and it was like Ukraine had 500,000 single male visitors, I think, in 2021 for 2020. So it was absolutely enormous as a demographic. That's probably at 1% of what it was pre 2022 invasion. So this could be really the last summer of this phase of the Russo-Ukrainian war. I predict to be 50-50 this year. At the beginning of the year, I made that prediction. Also, then, if that didn't happen, to be 80% in 2027. We see a lot of overtures, either from the Europeans or from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in recent days, talking about having a ceasefire and just using that as the base to have negotiations with Putin. Just to turn my attention a little bit back into geopolitics, I actually think that's unlikely that Putin will do that. I think he will go for mobilization, but it's very hard to judge. It's kind of, I'm saying it's more likely than not, but I can't say it's a very strong more likely. So am I saying it's 60-40, 75-25, somewhere in between that he goes for another mobilization and then pushes the war on into 2027. I don't think that will be a game changer for Russia. I think they'll just drag out the inevitable and actually it'll weaken Putin domestically because it's going to be unpopular. Then that he stops the fighting, but that may happen as well. And I think in 2027 we will at some point, as that's 80% likely, we're going to see a pause in the fighting. So this could be this last phase, this last summer, where we will have a hot war in the space of the Russo-Ukrainian war. So I'll put it to you in those terms that this is kind of the last of that opportunity, so to say, to see it. And a lot of my clients who do come, the ones that do come, they come because they want to get first mover effect for the post-war reconstruction boom. They're investing in real estate, or they are looking at business opportunities here, in particular with agriculture and defense. And or they happen to have a Ukrainian significant other, like their wife or their fiance is Ukrainian. And yeah, one of them, he actually bought an apartment last year in Kyiv and he's renovating. He told me it's going to be ready for September. I'm probably going to go up there and film, yeah, what it looks like after it's been renovated. I didn't film it earlier on, unfortunately, but I guess we'll have photos to show you how all that works. So it could be interesting for you from that point of view. Again, got all the links down below if you want to get in contact with me and tap into my knowledge to help you come here and save yourself a lot of time, money, and probably emotions as well. So I'm going to sign off on that note, unless there's a question there, but there isn't at the moment, and say, as what's written on my t-shirt, actually it's a different t-shirt. I got the Ukrainian Farmer Forces one on, which is a reference to the beginning in 2022, where a lot of Russian tanks ended up abandoned in the fields and they were taken away. They were basically, I guess, to a certain extent, not quite looted by the Ukrainian farmers, but they were, what's the better word? Reconnoiter? Is that? No, that's not the word I want to say to. Anyways, they were seized by the local farmers in the countryside, particularly in Kyiv Oblast, and then they were kept as trophies. And who knows where some of them might have ended up. But anyways, that is that reference there. And as always, Slava Ukraini, do перемоги.